So welcome to the Library Skills for Covenant Theology II webinar. My name is Steve Jameson. I'm the Associate Librarian for Public Services. I'll be presenting tonight. Brady Schumann is here co-hosting with me. She's going to be monitoring the chat room. So she'll give me a heads up if you post any questions there for me to answer. So today we're going to kind of continue what we covered in last semester's session for Covenant Theology I. So last semester we talked about finding commentaries and doing scripture citation searching in the ATLA religion database. Those are both skills that are going to serve you very well through your seminary career and are going to be very applicable to this paper you have to do in Covenant Theology II this semester. Last semester was pretty mechanical because we had to do that scripture citation searching. You know, how do I do this particular kind of search? What do I type in? That sort of thing. Today we're going to take a step back and we're going to be a little more conceptual. So hopefully that'll be a little more interesting for some of you. Okay, so we're going to do a little warm-up activity here to get our minds thinking. So I've selected this picture. It's a picture I just found online. And I want you to take a couple minutes and do a little brainstorming. I want you to imagine that this is a frame from a movie. And I'd like you to think up a title for this movie. Just take a couple seconds, 30 seconds, and see if you can come up with a title for this movie. And you can type that into the chat box when you're ready. So I'm watching the chat here. We've got Arrival, E.T., Get Out. Any other ideas out there? Other ideas I've seen are The Stacks, because they want a library themed, nice library themed movie. I like that. Into the Darkness. So thanks for those suggestions. So the illustration here is that, so we're all looking at the same photo, but when we come up with a title, we come up with different terminology to describe what we have in front of us. And that's the reality of publishing every day, because authors write books on various topics, and they often write books about something that's been written about before. They try to be clever or unique, so they come up with a title that's maybe creative, and they may use different terminology than one another. That presents a challenge when we go to find that material. So, because we have to ask ourselves, well, what are we going to type into a library catalog or a database to find this material that's about this one subject that we're trying to research? And one of the great examples I can think of for that is group teenagers, that demographic group. We have lots of words to describe that demographic category. If it's not teenagers, we can say teens, we can say adolescents if we want to be a little more technical maybe, high schoolers, youth, and maybe even you can think of a few other examples of words or terms that we have for the demographic group of teenagers. And so if I want to do some research on teenagers, what do I type into a search engine to find material about teenagers? So let's bring up a library catalog here, my world's smallest library catalog here. And I'm going to do some research on the doctrine of perseverance of the saints. So the P of tulip. So if I just come in and type into the computer the word perseverance, well, what is going to turn up in my search results? Well, what the computer is going to do is just find any book or record in the system that has the word perseverance somewhere on that record. So it could be in the title. You could see as in number 2 here, it's the publisher. It'll search the author. I don't know if anyone's named Perseverance, maybe, but I would find that. So it's not a very precise search. We have lots of stuff here, and you look at these results, which of these are actually about the doctrine of perseverance of the saints? Well, number 1 doesn't look really like that's it. No, this is a work of fiction from Perseverance Press. No. Okay, number 3, that looks good. Number 4, maybe not so much. No, number 5. And then, oh, here's number 6. That didn't get turned up by my search because the author didn't use the word perseverance, but it's about that topic. So I missed that one, so I'm not getting everything I could find about that topic. I'm getting a lot of stuff that is not helpful to my research. I have a lot of junk in here that I'm not interested in. So the library has some ways to help us out with that. And so one of those things is whenever a book comes into the librarians ask, what is this book about? And we have a system of subject categories that we can assign a book to. So this particular book, we might say, this is about the religious life of Generation Y, or it's about the religious life of young adults or of youth. Also about church work with young adults and church work with youth. So these are all subject categories we could assign to this book. And when we bring that into the library catalog, it looks like this. So you can see right down here, we have those subjects listed on the record. So this is the Library of Congress subject headings. So this is a fixed, standardized system of categorizing books and other materials in library collections. You can see that it's a hierarchical system. So we have a subject heading for Generation Y, and then whenever you see this dash dash, that's an indication of a narrower level, a subheading, a subcategory. So the religious life of Generation Y. And this can be a pretty good help for our searching. So if we come back to our perseverance example, we have the same 6 books here in our library catalog, but I've added in the subject headings now. So now if I do my same search for perseverance, yeah, I'm still getting a lot of junk in here, but at least down here in number 6, even though the author didn't use the word perseverance, the librarians have said this is about the doctrine of perseverance. And so now that word appears on the record and it'll show up in my search. So I can come down and I can read through the results as I did before and come to the first result that's relevant, Paul and perseverance. And I can see that, oh, perseverance theology. There's the subject heading for my topic, the theological concept of perseverance. And that's distinguishing it from, for example, under number 5 here, there's this other subject heading, perseverance ethics. So depending on your field of study, perseverance may be used in different technical ways. And in theology, it's used in a very technical way. And so the subject headings acknowledge that and specify that this is the theological sense of perseverance. So when I see that, subject heading on this record, I can say, well, let me tell the catalog, well, just give me everything that has that subject assigned to it. So if I do that search for perseverance theology now as a subject search, now I get just number 1 and 3, just the books that are about the topic I'm interested in, and all the other stuff that I'm not interested in falls away. The other thing this can help me with is you see on number 6 there, that term assurance theology. So there's a related heading, maybe a different topic that's related, similar, and I didn't think of searching under assurance, but that tells me that, hey, maybe I should check that and see what is available there, because that might be relevant to my research as well. So now I want to do a demo for you of what this looks like in real life, not just in a tiny little catalog. So let me come to the library homepage here, and I'm going to change gears here. I'm going to look at youth ministry. So I'm going to type in to the catalog search bar, youth ministry there. You'll see I put that in quotes. So anytime you put something in quotation marks in a search engine, that generally tells it that you want these 2 words treated as a phrase. By default, search engines will tend to find, if I just put youth ministry without the quotes, it'll treat those as 2 separate words and show me anything that includes those 2 words not necessarily connected with one another. So I'm just trying to narrow and hone in my search specifically about youth ministry. So I put it in quotation marks, so I just find those 2 words together in that order as a phrase. And I'll click search and see what I can find in the catalog on that topic. So I come in here, and first thing I notice right there, I have 120 results for my search for youth ministry. So that's a good amount of resources there. And I can come into one of these results, And come down to, for example, gospel-centered youth ministry. So that looks good to me. That looks like something about my topic. And so let me see what subject headings are on there. So I scroll down, come down to the subject headings. And I see that the subject heading for youth ministry in this catalog is church work with youth. And so that's the term I should really be searching under to find this kind of material. And what I can do is I can just click that. I can just click a subject heading that's interesting to me and see what else the catalog has about that topic. Comes into this browse display so I can see that subject heading in the context of all the other subject headings that are used in the catalog. So you see up here, church work with young adults. Come down here and you see narrower topics under church work with youth. So first, church work with youth, that's what I clicked on. It's highlighted for me in yellow. And I see that there are 153 books in this library catalog about church work with youth, about youth ministry. So that's bigger than the 120 some that I found with my keyword search. But then down here, you see all these other narrower categories, and that is in addition to that 153. So there's more than just that. There's also these 6 case studies about youth ministry. And we can go down a little further. Here's church work with youth in the Presbyterian Church in America. We even have a book specifically about that. If I want to see what's categorized under any of these headings, I just click on it. So church work with youth, case studies, I can see those 6 case studies and where to go in the library to get them. So how can this help you in covenant theology? So let me go back to just the covenant catalog here. And so for your covenant theology paper, you're going to be working with Carson and Beale's commentary on the New Testament use of the Old Testament. So let's find that. Let's find Carson and Beale and see if we can find any other material on that topic. So here we go, right there. There it is, and let's see what subject headings are on there. So we see a couple that might be interesting. First one there, Bible, Old Testament, relation to the New Testament, and Bible, New Testament, relation to the Old Testament, just the reverse, so it goes both ways. And if I want to take a look at that Bible, New Testament, relation to the Old Testament, again, I click on that and see what we have. So there we go. So we have 160 books about that topic in our library. So that's a lot of resources for your research. But before I click on that, I want to look around a little bit. So I can see that, I can also do Bible, New Testament, relation to the Pentateuch. Okay, that's a good thing to keep in mind. And then above that, there it's telling me that, hey, there are 2 other Library of Congress subject headings that I might be interested in, 2 related subjects, if this is something a topic I'm researching. So let's see what those are. So we come up with Bible, Old Testament quotations in the New Testament. Again, that's super relevant for this project in covenant theology. And typology. And I click on this quotations one and see what's available there. So there we go. We have 52 books on that topic. But again, above that, there's a little note that gives me some more information. So, okay, this is just pointing me back to where I came from, New Testament relation to the Old Testament. There's a good note down here that I should pay attention to. And so that's telling me that there's a subdivision or subheading. Can take that subheading, relation to the Old Testament, and I can add that onto the subject heading for any individual New Testament book or groups of books. So if I'm interested in Romans, I can say Romans, relation to the Old Testament, or Gospels, relation to the Old Testament. And those would be valid subject headings in our catalog that you might be able to find material under. So let's apply that. So I'm going to go over here and do an advanced search now. Switch over to subject, because again, I want to search in these subject headings. And I'm going to look at Ephesians. I know you're working on 1 Peter. That's going to be your homework to try this for 1 Peter. So I'm going to work on Ephesians. So I type in Ephesians. I want to find books about Ephesians, and I want to find also books about its relation to something else. The Old Testament, the Pentateuch, prophets, whatever. So I say LC subject Ephesians, LC subject relation to in quotation marks. do my search and see what turns up. And I get 3 books that are specifically about how Ephesians uses the Old Testament. So using those subject headings, I was able to do an incredibly targeted, narrowed search specifically aimed at this project for Covenant Theology. Now, of course, you don't have access to just what we have in Covenant's collection, so you can pass that search up to Mobius. Click that Search Mobius button and see what else is out there. And I've gone from 3 now to 9 that I have access to. So let's review. So some useful searches. So we saw some subject headings that you might be interested in as you do your research for this paper. Bible, New Testament, relation to the Old Testament, and Bible, Old Testament, quotations in the New Testament. And then we did this advanced search. So here we go. So search for these phrases as subjects in our catalog. Peter, 1st. So recall, last semester when we did scripture citation searching, whenever you have like a first or second of a book, you have to put it in this weird order. Works the same in our library catalog. So Peter, 1st, and quotation marks. And then in the next field down, set it to subject and do relation to. See what turns up. See if there's anything that would help you in your paper. So I'm going to pause there and see if you have any questions. Of course, you're welcome to type them in or raise your hand at any time, but let's pause and see if you have any questions about subject heading searching. Okay, so if you do have any questions, if you're still typing, go ahead and we'll come back to it, but we're gonna move right along. So we just saw moving from the Covenant catalog to Mobius to expand our search, which we talked about last semester as well. This semester, I want to talk to you about one more level we can go. So this illustration is not to scale, but here we are in the center. Here's Covenant, here's our library collection, and we're part of Mobius. So you can expand your search to Mobius to find more books on your topic. But there's one more level we can talk about, and that's WorldCat. So WorldCat, as the name implies, is a worldwide catalog. Parentheses, it's mostly North America, but it does have a number of libraries around the world in it. So it's a huge database of books that are available that you can use for your research. And I want to show you that because that's something you can take advantage of. So let me go back to demo mode here. There we go. And I'm going to go back to library homepage. And you see right under our search bar here, you can see those 3 levels right here, Covenant, Mobius, and WorldCat. So let's click on WorldCat and see what we find there. I'm going to do an advanced search just like we did before in our catalog. So same thing, change the subject, Ephesians. Subject, relation to, and do my search. So we found 3 books in Covenant, 9 in Mobius, and we have 23 in WorldCat. So I can browse through here. Of course, you're going to see what Covenant owns showing up there as well. As we come down, I may be interested in, for example, this one, Paul's use of Genesis 2:24 and Ephesians 5:31. This is a THM thesis from Westminster Theological Seminary. And if these were the verses I was working on, this would be a really interesting work to take a look at. Now, before I request it through WorldCat, I should probably check Mobius first, just to double check, make sure it's not available in Mobius, because Mobius will always come quicker. But if it's not available in Mobius, you can go ahead and request a traditional interlibrary loan. See that button right here? Request item through interlibrary loan. You click that, fill in a little information about yourself, and our ILL department will go to work finding a library that owns this book and getting it sent here. Now, like I said, Mobius is faster. Mobius takes 3 to 5 business days. For a traditional interlibrary loan book, we say allow up to 2 weeks. Talked last semester about interlibrary loan for articles, which are sent electronically. They do come faster. But for books, we say allow up to 2 weeks. Now, on your timeline for your paper, you've got time. If you do some research now, and you can get some interlibrary loan requests in, and you can get them in time to use that resource in your paper. So let me see, I'll pause again here and give you an opportunity to ask any questions you might have about searching in WorldCat or requesting interlibrary loans. So if there are no questions, we're going to move to our next topic, and that's reference tools. So we're going to take another step back, and we did some work on doing some research, finding books, using subject headings. We're going to take one more step back and talk about these reference tools, because reference tools can be really helpful when you're beginning your research. So I want to talk to you about some of the specific reference tools that we have available in the library, or at least the specific kinds. So we'll start off with encyclopedias and dictionaries. I just want to give you an idea of the kinds of resources that we have in this category. So I'll start off with something really simple. So this is the Westminster Dictionary of Theological Terms. There are many other works like this. We have some other ones in our collection. This is one that we have. And so you can see over here that it gives you short definitions about theological terms. So this is great for when you're in class. If you're not really familiar with the language of theology, your professor uses a term, you're like, oh, I heard that before, but I don't quite remember what it is. This is a resource that you could turn to when you can't keep your infralapsarians and your I can't even say it right, your infralapsarians and your supralapsarians straight. If I can get my pronunciation straight. If you don't remember which one's which, this can tell you that sort of information. So these are really short tools, short entries. On the complete opposite side of the spectrum, there's something like this, the Encyclopedia of Applied Ethics. So this is a neat resource for studying topics in ethics. And now these articles are much longer. They average 10 pages. This is a 4-volume work. And so you get a lot more information. So you can see this entry on abortion starts off with a glossary and then gets into the entry. And you get several more pages after that of information and a short bibliography at the end. So that can be really useful. You want to, if you find your topic in one of these resources, you get that overview. So you see a summary of the topic, you get oriented to the topic, you get to know what is the state of academic research on this topic. It gives you a framework for understanding what you're going to read in the journal articles, in the books that you find. It's going to help you learn the terminology so that you can have a better idea of what to type into a library catalog or a database to find other material. And it's going to give you that bibliography that you can mine, because that is, this author's opinion of what are the major works on this topic, which are probably important works that you'll want to take a look at in your own research. So let's see what else is out there. Here's one, Dictionary for the Theological Interpretation of the Bible. I've got the page displayed here, has an article, Relationship Between the Testaments. So you can find information in these that would help you get a better understanding or framework for your paper in Covenant Theology. Now, I'm sure your professors have probably done a really good job of that so far. But if you're embarking on research on a topic that you're unfamiliar with, this could be a great help. Another one like this, Dictionary of the Later New Testament and its Developments, has an article, Old Testament in General Epistles, which includes 1 Peter. So there's another work that includes some information relevant to this paper. Some other tools out there. The New Dictionary of Christian Apologetics. So of course there's lots of Bible encyclopedias and dictionaries out there. This one's kind of unique because it takes, its perspective is from the perspective of Christian apologetics. So we have, an article on the deity of Christ. So a theology dictionary would, emphasize, the theological aspects of that, the theological controversies and that have been taking place over the church's history about the deity of Christ. Whereas this one, because it's an apologetics dictionary, the first section up here is the case for Christ's deity. So it takes an apologetic approach to all the topics it covers. Dictionary of Biblical Imagery. So this is a work that specializes in examining the imagery, the metaphors that are used in the Bible. So we have selected here an article on bread. So how is bread used as an image in the Bible? And the Baker Encyclopedia of Bible People. So if you come across, well, I guess we all know who Abel is, but if you come across a really an obscure name in the Bible, this may have some information on that. You see a reference, it can tell you where to go in the Bible to find that person and some information about them. So that's encyclopedias and dictionaries. And there's a really blurry line between them. You can have multi-volume dictionaries and single-volume encyclopedias. And so which is which and who knows. But here's another category for you, bibliographies. So these are books that just list other published works. So here's an example. Here's a bibliography on angels, an indexed and partially annotated bibliography of over 4,300 scholarly books and articles since the 7th century BC. Wow. So, I mean, this is seems to be like a pretty comprehensive work. And it's arranged alphabetically by author, but there's a nice index in the back where you can look up whatever topic, whatever specific aspect of angels you're interested in, angels in the book of Revelation, whatever. And it'll then list, okay, here are all the articles and give you the article numbers so you can go get more information. Which will tell you where to find that thing, and in many cases give you an annotation, a little summary or abstract of that article or book, so you have a better idea of whether or not that's something to use in your research. Along the same lines, here's a bibliography on the book of Amos. This is an annotated bibliography. Now, of course, Amos is a very short book of the Bible. This bibliography has 360 pages of bibliography entries about the book of Amos. So apparently a lot has been written about the book of Amos. It's an unappreciated prophet. Or maybe we think it's an unappreciated prophet, but he's actually gotten a lot of attention. So this would be a huge resource if you're working in the book of Amos. Now, of course, bibliographies go out of date as soon as they're published. New stuff is always being published. But at least, up until the publication date of that book, you're pretty well covered, as long as the compiler has done their homework. The other thing I want to highlight is handbooks. And this is kind of a mishmash category of reference materials. For example, there's the Handbook of Denominations in the United States. So this is neat work. It just lists all kinds of denominations in the United States and gives you a little history about them. So you're working in a context and you come across another minister or ministry worker from a denomination, you're like, I have never heard of that denomination. You can go to a resource like this and find out a little bit about them. When were they founded? How many, what's their membership? What's their history? Where do they come from? What's their, theological heritage? Another kind of handbook, a library and a book. So this is a series. We have maybe like 24 of these thereabouts on different topics. You're not going to find one of these on every topic that you research, but if you do, it's a gold mine of information. So in one of these volumes, it gives you an introduction to the topic. It gives you a timeline of important events. It gives you, if applicable, court cases, summary of court cases. Gives you a glossary of terms, gives you biographies of important people, a directory of organizations related to your topic, and an annotated bibliography. So it's kind of this one-stop research shop to get you started on your research. So of course, these reference tools, they're where you start your research. They're not necessarily where you're going to cite in your paper. They're to get you oriented to your topic, teach you how to research that topic, to find other materials that you will cite in your paper, but they can be very valuable in getting your research jump-started. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask them, or there's my contact information. You can come into the library and we'll be glad to help you find reference resources for any research that you're doing, help you find any other materials worth your research. So you can contact me, come in and talk to Andrew, talk to Mr. Pakula. And then of course, one more reminder, do register your attendance at this session. Complete that attendance quiz, and we'll see you in the library.